Hosting this session will be our moderator, Mr. Janice Tan, Industrial Automation Solutions Manager at Delta Electronics. And our esteemed panelists for this session, we have Mr. Lim Chin Kian, Director, Sales and Business Development, LIPCO, Dr. Chua Wen Shin, Head of Malaysian Smart Factory 4.0 Selangor Human Resource Development Center, known as SHRDC, as well as Mr. Won Moon Fui, Deputy Director of Engineering, Dun & Bush. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give a big hand as we welcome Mr. Janice, as well as our esteemed panelists to the stage. A big round of applause. All right, Mr. Janice, over to you.
Thank you. So, good afternoon. My name is Janice. I'm from Delta Electronics Solutions. Welcome to our fireside chat sessions. So, I'm your moderators for today. So, the title of today's fireside chat is actually connecting the dots between AI data centers and manufacturing ecosystems. I believe we can all agree that Malaysia has become a strategic location for AI data centers. So the investment alone doesn't justify that the supply chain value actually stay here within Malaysia. So the main questions today is, how can we capture the value chain within Malaysia, right? So before I go deeper, I would like to do a quick opening round with our guests today. So when we spoke about AI data centers, so what is the first operational challenge that comes to your mind and why? Let's start with you, Mr. Woon.
Paperwork, submissions. Yeah, like what Mr. Chen shared, cooling is not simple in data center. So the designers, the clients, they will want to ensure everything's proper, in line, in accordance to the design. Thus, they will require very extensive paperwork and a lot of value engineering to suit their client and their application.
All right. Over to you, Dr. Chua.
Yeah, I think when it comes to AI data centers, we have a lot of users, right, in terms of AI in the space of Malaysia. But I think one of the biggest challenge that I think the previous panel discussion as well highlighted was talents. Right, so there's not enough talents to actually, I think, sustain that kind of infrastructure and also technology. So I think this is something that will be one of the challenges that I will talk about more today as well. Yeah, aside from the technology side.
Okay, how about you, Mr. Lim?
So LIPCO manufactures low voltage and medium voltage switchgears for data centers and industrial factories. So from what we are seeing now, customers are moving way faster than before. So they expect shorter delivery timeline, and in some projects, they even ask us to deliver the switchboards to site before all the components arrive, and we have to install them at site later. So while this shorten the overall delivery project timeline, we also need to plan and monitor closely because the testing and commissioning has become much challenging.
All right. I think this is already telling us something very important, that scaling AI data centers is not just about a single problem. It generates a series of challenges that we have to face, right? So it leads us to the first questions of the session. What have actually changed on the ground? So can I start with you, Mr. Woon? From your perspective, what do you see as the biggest change now compared to 2-3 years ago that is specifically different?
On cooling side, I would say, like shared by earlier sessions, for especially when AI data center grow, the cooling technology or the system of data center has moved from air cooling to liquid cooling. This is one very major change in our cooling sector. And when with this move, on our side as a chiller manufacturer, so we need to redesign the chillers with higher chill water temperature. We need to design the chillers with more stable, more reliable, as shared that this is one of the most important thing in the data center, that you cannot afford to have no chill water. So that will be one of the very huge change. So of course, when shared by earlier sessions, even with the liquid cooling is coming into the industry, we will still have the air cooling with the fan wall unit in place. So those are what we are facing now.
All right, all right. So how about you, Mr. Lim? Maybe I'll start with you first.
Okay, so just now I spoke about compressed timelines and all that. So customers are expecting shorter timelines, but their requirements have become more complex. So that also caused the engineering timeline to become longer. So I think the challenge for local manufacturers is how do we shorten the engineering cycle without compromising quality.
Okay, over to you, Dr. Chua. You are very special because you sit between manufacturing and capability development.
Yes,
so
yes,
what do you
yes.
think?
Well, I think what Mr. Lim has mentioned is very true, right? In terms of compressed timelines, manufacturers are now being even more required to actually meet tighter timelines while ensuring tighter quality specification. And at the same time, the end users are always looking for things that are faster, better, and of course cheaper, right? So I think this is where the government, right, launched the new Industrial Master Plan 2030, right, with the aim of the focus of actually trying to increase the productivity, efficiency of manufacturers. And I think with the boom of AI today, it's more of a question of how can manufacturers leverage on these new technologies to meet compressed timelines, right? And how to actually solve all the paperwork constraints as well. And not just that, I think that the shift of where manufacturers are really revisiting the advancement of technology is more to not how much technology can now increase in terms of being more lean, but how can you actually deploy a more efficient workforce where you have this component of your digital worker actually in place to do a lot of tasks, right? So some manufacturers call it the 3-4-5 strategy, right? They call it you have 3 people doing a 5-person job with a 4-person salary. 3-4-5, easy to remember, right? So question is, like, when we want to meet compressed timelines, are we actually repositioning processes, or are we trying to innovate that kind of strategy of a digital workforce to actually speed up that process, right? And I think this is where manufacturers are trying their very best to actually meet that. But of course, there is a lot more to do at the moment. Yeah.
Okay, so from what you said, you shared, I believe that the demand is real, but obviously capturing it is another story. So I would like to move into the topic of how do we actually convert the AI demands into an actual manufacturing opportunity? So I'd like to start with you, Mr. Lim. So you mentioned earlier to me that Malaysia is actually attracting hyperscaler investment, but sometimes the hyperscalers will bring along their own global supply chain with them. So how does the local manufacturers capture those local supply chain value rather than watching it going to the global suppliers?
There's a common misconception is that when a hyperscaler builds a data center in Malaysia, the local manufacturers automatically benefit. But in reality, that is not how the supply chain works. So global customers, they don't simply buy from the nearest supplier. So they buy from supplier they trust, right? So they are not only looking at the product, so they are also looking at our engineering capability, our after-sales support, manufacturing processes, testing procedures, and etc. Right? So if we are able to convince them to trust us, then we are not only competing for one local project, so we can become a part of their regional supply chain. So to me, the real opportunity is not about producing more, it's about how to become their trusted engineering and manufacturing partner.
Okay. So you specifically mentioned on trust. So can you elaborate a bit more? How do we gain the trust from all these global suppliers? Yeah, Mr. Lim, can you continue?
Maybe, is there any, on the engineering side, maybe they can speak better?
How about you, Mr. Woon?
For me, okay, I think first we usually start with, for our side cooling equipment, we got to be in the client's approved vendor list before we can start over all this trust. Even if they don't know us, we don't even have chance to show our trust, our capability. So usually we will have to go through this as a very first step. So in fact, as I gone through, most of the DC clients, they are very concerned and particular on our capability. Design capability is the most minimal. They will visit our factory. But another very important evaluation criteria of DC Colo will be our test facility. So like us, DB Malaysia, actually we spend a lot of money on our test chamber so that they can carry out full testing FAT in our factory, and even in accordance to various conditions that they wish. They may not happen at site, but it's come into their mind, they have the concerns, so they can put it into our test lab to test it. Then, of course, very important, pre-sales and after-sale support. That's number one. Then if you talk about trust, then maybe I share some experience I have with one of the regional colo. They're based in Singapore. This is how I involved. We supply to one of their data center in one of the Southeast Asia country. Then they experienced some issue on the cooling system. It's not on our equipment. It's beyond our equipment. They're looking for help. So I was at job site to assist them to resolve the problem. So it's beyond our scope. It's not our scope. So we assist them because we are cooling. We are expert in chiller system. We assist them. So then they have new project in Malaysia. We've been called in. We've been called in not just a tender. Even at when we finalize a tender, about to finalize a tender, their tenant make change on the requirement. They have to redesign you see the structure has up. Now their client changed the requirement. They want to repartition the space, something like that. They have to redesign the cooling. We were sending our team, me, myself also, sitting in the office to redesign the fan wall unit to suit their application and to meet the limitations. They increase the capacity, but they have the space constraint. So we got our team to design it to suit what they are looking for. So this is how we help our customer extensively, and that I feel do gain the trust from the customer. Yeah.
All right. So from what I'm hearing is that capturing the opportunity is more than just having the right products, right? You need to build trust. You need to satisfy your customer. You need to build up your engineering capabilities, right? So that's one thing that a lot of people is missing is that when we are capturing the supply chain value and we are scaling our production line, right? So we don't just end up with more businesses. Sometimes we have more complexities as well. So I wanted to elaborate further on this complexities topic. So when demand grows, a lot of us might assume that the answer is simply by adding more capacity. But in terms of manufacturing, I believe more demand will bring more complexities as well. So Dr. Chua, over to you. Can you explain to us what is the toughest thing that you see first when it comes to higher complexities for manufacturer?
Yeah, so I think for manufacturing complexity, design for manufacturing is of course one. As you want to come up with new designs, more efficient designs, that's one. Secondly is that when you have bigger demand, right, the complexity arises in terms of how do you manage resources more effectively? How do you actually allocate resources in a more efficient manner? And one of the biggest things that is important for manufacturers is traceability, right? So if we are not able to trace from the source of the issue, when an issue really happens, that's where you break trust, right? So if trust is very important for gaining better business globally, regionally, or even locally, then the traceability and the capability to do that is very important, right? So as we scale up complexity of our manufacturing operations using the latest technology and latest trend, we have to remember that at the end of the day, what are we doing it for, right? Is it to really reduce costs, or is it really to build better trust, right? So some manufacturers, they look at implementing technology with more complex systems solely to reduce labor in terms of reducing costs, right? But what are customers really looking at today? They are not looking at just the cheapest option. They are looking at the most reliable option. They are looking at the most sustainable option, right? So technology has to be implemented in a way where it provides that trust, branding, and capability to the manufacturer, so that the customers that choose them, they know that, okay, you are expensive, yes, but you are reliable. And data center operations need to be reliable, right? Products like cars need to be reliable, right? So these are important aspects when you implement complexity in manufacturing. They must be reliable. Yeah, so that's I think, one of the important parts of building trust in that manufacturing sector.
So you talk about trust, you talk about traceability, you talk about reliability. So can you share with us some of the most interesting project that you have worked on with the local manufacturers in terms of advanced manufacturing, digitalizations, Industrial 4.0, or even deploying AI within the manufacturing environment, please?
Yeah, so I think I work with many manufacturers from automotive, electronics, timber, rubber, plastics, right? I think one of the biggest challenge for them is on trying to convert a lot of paper-based work to digital, and it's still an ongoing problem, right? And we have been in this Industry 4.0 smart factory for almost 8 years plus now already, right? It's still a problem, right? But AI, of course, now tends to help them a little bit, right? And helps them to make things slightly faster, right? But then comes the challenge on demand, right? Are the cloud providers really ready to support that, right? And of course, it comes down to the cost of manufacturing as well. So one of the more interesting projects that we have done is, of course, increasing traceability. So we started a lot with the IoT part many years ago, still doing, but now is a bit more mature, right? And now manufacturers see the value of that kind of traceability of IoT, OEE, and all that. We start to see a bit more boost in trends where they now use AI to recommend possible solutions, right? So they have downtime, what can they use it for? What can they do that? How can they actually improve productivity using AI? That's something that they are actually experiencing a lot of benefits from, right? We see a lot of use cases now in manufacturing that are using vision language models, a lot, like really, really a lot. And that kind of use case, right, is like converting your paper, right? There's so many papers everywhere, just take a snapshot, go straight to your database. So those speed up time, but at the same time, the complexity of it comes from that, okay, we know that cloud-based models are good, they are brilliant, they are really, really good, but do we really need such large models, right? Do we really need such capacity to run something that a normal person would do, right? So we then start to curate architectures where some of the tasks can be done on the edge with smaller models, and some of the more complex tasks are done at the cloud with the cloud-based model. So these are the type of applications where we call it the AI model maturity framework, where you have the smaller billion parameter models doing tasks that a 7-year-old can do. A 30B model is a 30-year-old task person can do. And of course, something in the cloud will be a wise person that will handle this kind of workload. So they start to save a lot of costs in terms of tokenization usage, because now a lot of them can do things at the edge, while the more complex things are done at the cloud. But then comes the next problem. The next problem is security, right? So and usually for manufacturers, their biggest worry is security, right? And therefore, now the questions are also that, are the manufacturer's IT team ready to support that kind of security breach? Because they have their own servers, they have their own systems, but are they actually skilled and competent to handle this kind of risk? Yeah.
So you mentioned on a few successful projects, but today I want to learn about the other side of the story because I believe some of the manufacturers here, they do have experience of implementing AI systems or smart manufacturing, but they were unable to achieve a reliable result. So from your experience, what is usually the root cause of this unsuccessful kind of project, and how do we usually overcome it?
Okay. So there are many cases of unsuccessful projects in Malaysia that I have seen before many times. Okay, and I always tell manufacturers, right, that the one to adopt technology very fast and the ones that are the most agile in adopting technologies are usually smaller companies. Because why? The bureaucracy in the smaller companies are a bit lesser, right? So some of the manufacturing use cases that we have seen, why they implement technology and they never scale is, number one, because of the leadership commitment and competency. Most manufacturing leaders, they see technology and they just say, okay, yeah, this is good, let's buy that, right? And that's where the challenge comes, right? You buy, you implement, and the bottom line is not convinced that this is going to help us, right? So you need to be convinced that technology is there to help, not to be a threat, right? So this is where I think a lot of manufacturers did not realize that challenge, right? They hop into technology very fast, but they don't separate that. There's another spectrum of manufacturers that are everything also cannot. I only implement AI with Copilot, nothing else. I think some of you nod your head means you have experienced that before, right? And that's very common because they believe that Copilot is the best and the most secure AI in the world. But just now the panel earlier mentioned that, you use OpenAI had a threat, and who sort of saved the day, right? It's the other side of the models, right? So it's East meets West, that kind of thing, right? So the challenge now is how do we now embrace innovation in factories, right? How do you now set up a governance model in factories to experiment new technologies and at the same time be willing to pilot to scale, right? So a lot of AI implementation in factories do not scale because they stay in the pilot stage. And so you have a lot of experimenters because they are very curious, they like to try. But when it comes to production grade, then they have all these roadblocks that they need to fix, right? So this is where some of the challenges come from there. Yeah.
Indeed. We need to understand the technology before we fully utilize it in our production line. So before I move to the next topic, I would like to touch a bit on the subject of energy efficiency. Because as we know, AI data centers consume a lot of energies. So, Mr. Woon, is energy efficiency now among the hottest topic from the manufacturer, or is still a redundant topic to you?
It's very important. I mean, everybody talking about PUE in data center. Then they talk about 0.0 something. Yeah, that's where we are coming. One of the major power consumption in data center, especially in our area, is on the cooling. So we are on the hot pot on it. Yeah.
Thank you. So to summarize the complexity issues, I believe that the key is how we transit from building more capacities to build up our digital capabilities, right? As mentioned by Dr. Chua. So let's proceed to our last conversations of the day, which is how do we build a sustainable ecosystem within Malaysia so that we are not just capturing the supply chain value, but we are keeping it within Malaysia's or within the regions for the years to come. So, Mr. Lim, the question is for you is that you mentioned to me just now you want to build an ecosystem partnership. That is the directions that we are heading. So, what kind of role can a technology partners or a solution provider like Delta can play in terms of helping the local manufacturers to capture the local supply chain value?
So I think what we need to do today is to build stronger partnerships across the ecosystem. So technology leaders like Delta can play a very important role. They bring in global technologies, innovation, and experience in AI and data centers across the world. So, but For local manufacturers, we bring our strength as well. So we understand local manufacturing, engineering, project execution, customer support on the ground. So I believe, when global technology leaders and a capable local manufacturers work together, we can deliver an integrated solution that meets global standards while maintaining very strong local execution. So I believe this is how local manufacturers can move up the value chain and not miss out on the next wave.
Okay, thank you. So, Mr. Woon, from your side, from a perspective of engineering manufacturers, so what is the key point that you look at when you're choosing your technology partners? Or I should ask, what's the difference between vendors and permanent technology partners to you?
Yeah, good questions. Yeah. Okay, of course, always reliability, number one, because we're producing products that not just HVAC, but data center. So reliability. Then, of course, to Dunham-Bush, as our factory is in Malaysia, but Malaysia factory we are exporting almost worldwide. We are export our equipment to Southeast Asia, even as far as to USA, Middle East, India. So we do appreciate partners who has a global presence like Delta. So of course, very important also pre-sales and after-sales support. I think one good case we can share is how we work on the inverter project. We started somewhere end of last year. So where we actually phase in Delta refrigerant cooled VFD into our chiller design. So your team, Ethan and Jeff, they've gone through a lot with us. So into very detail on the engineering design and the support, then we make it happen. Now our unit's running with your inverter. So another, like what you say, how we will choose a real partner. So I would say I would expect a partner that can work together and can grow together with us. I mean, another case like recent, we working very closely with Delta Malaysia team and Delta India team, as well as our own Dunham-Bush India team on one of the metro projects in India. We work very closely together to manage the approval, to manage the execution of that project, as well as the delivery of the project, because we are specifying Delta VFD in that case. So, of course, when we talk about data center ecosystem in Malaysia, I was impressed by your new office in JB. I will go next week, okay? When I visit the JB next week. Okay, then I do feel that we can work together. I mean, we keep on talking about local supply chain, and when I see this one, how can I think about it? I see Delta is supplying CDU, so it could be CDU and chiller by CDU by Delta, chiller by Dunham-Bush. And for me also, there's a small business unit under me. My responsibility also is a chiller plant optimization system. So Delta has very comprehensive control solutions. So definitely there will be another room that we can work together where we can have Dunham-Bush CPOS and Delta DSIM. There could be one solution that we can help on Malaysia data center ecosystem. That's how I can see it.
I think I couldn't agree more that established ecosystem of partnership is very important. So, Dr. Chow, what is the take on this? Do you agree on building a sustainable ecosystem within Malaysia?
Oh yes, definitely. And in fact, for the smart factory ecosystem, we started this with our Switzerland partner, the Swiss Smart Factory, back all the way in 2017, right, when we started the Malaysian Smart Factory. We started off with 9 technology partners, the early stage partners. Today we have grown to 60 partners, all across local and global partnerships as well. And to formalize even more that partnership model, right? To account for the growing direction of AI and also in data centers, we recently in May we launched this platform called Synergy. Right, which basically builds upon the network of the global network and also the network of the local partners to grow that ecosystem of technology and competencies for all the people in Malaysia. And I think this word synergy resonates very well in all our conversations, right? It's about building a very strong ecosystem in Malaysia. I see that very apparent in automotive industry. right? So if you look at the Perodua supply chain, the vendor ecosystem is very, very strong. Yeah, they have their own strong ecosystem, and I think everyone benefits, right? Because if you help your vendors, you help yourself, right? And I think the word vendors also now, I mean, for some of the people, we don't call them vendors, but we call them partners, right? We are in this journey together. And this is very important for manufacturers to consider moving forward because, to be more resilient, to build trust, that is the ecosystem we are trying to build, right? And in Malaysia, I think that for the data center ecosystem, we definitely will encourage that. We have worked with several data center operators with our data center operator program, technician program, but we have not seen that strong ecosystem yet from the data center perspective. And I think this event that Delta has organized, I would strongly encourage Delta then to drive the ecosystem if you can, right? And I think with partners like Dunham Bush and all that, I think that will be a good start for a good partnership model. Yeah.
Yeah. You mentioned on one important point is that the ecosystem doesn't scale by the demand. Instead, it's scaled by the people, the capability, the ecosystems, partnerships, right? All of this moving together will form a sustainable ecosystems. So before I do my closing, one last question to all three of you. So 5 years from now, from what we have discussed earlier, what is the one thing that we have to do to achieve our goal? Maybe I'll start with you, Mr. Woon.
This will generate or put up our DC ecosystem in Malaysia. On my point as a manufacturer, of course, our Maida representative has left, but we know her. We urge we urge government for more support. But of course, I'm not saying that customers not supporting. They did. Like for example, this year there are some new regulation that the MD status company, those who run DC in Malaysia, when they gain this MD status, they can exempt from 10% SST. That actually help us. So because if not, when we sell to customer DC colo in Malaysia, they got to pay the 10% SST. This can be waived. So which we are working with some of our partners, our customers. So I do hope that the government can have more policies that can help our local manufacturer to benefit from the data center sector grow in Malaysia. I went one of the event, I think it's Maida also. I think YB Liu mentioned that data center in Malaysia by Malaysian. There's something he mentioned, which we really hope to see that. So if I go one step further is when we as a local manufacturer can supply to data center in Malaysia, we do hope that our partners, means our vendors, can also be having our local supply chain. Because now actually we are having also big challenge on the lead time, like what you say. And most of my components are high-tech. I have to get it in from US, Germany, China. That sometimes I cannot fulfill the lead time by the client. Like what Mr. Lim said, I may have to install a site, but then the quality is another issue. That's how it goes. So that's all from me.
How about you, Dr. Chua? What is the one thing we can do now?
I think in the next 5 years, things will be very, very different. And I think demand is going to change a lot. The technological landscape is changing every day, right? And it's moving at a rapid pace. We're talking a lot about AI and data centers right now. We haven't talked about the next phase of industrial revolution, which is going to be more towards the robotic side, right? There's a new phase of things, and I've seen requests from data center operators requesting humanoids in data centers to do inspection, surveillance, and all that. The demand is going to grow, and I think we all need to be ready. And this is where I think ecosystems are important. We need to start today, because the next 5 years is going to finish very soon. And hopefully, for those attending today, the key message from this event, hopefully, is not to just know about new technology or what's happening on the ground, but is to now talk to each other and build that partnership from this day forward. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. How about you, Mr. Lim? What do you think?
So I think one of the ways forward is to collaborate. Right? So manufacturers cannot work in silos anymore. So we need to collaborate, with system integrators, technology providers like Delta, and with contractors. So with our combined strength, I believe we can deliver more complete solutions for customers.
Okay, thank you. So as we come to a close today, I think there are three key takeaways that I can emphasize for the conversation earlier. So the first is that the opportunity is real, right? But capturing it is not automatic. So we as a Malaysian manufacturing ecosystem have to move as fast as the demand, right? So secondly, moving up the supply chain now required a complete different solution. It's no longer relying on a single product or a single component or a single project. It requires collaborations between partnerships, ecosystems, integrated solutions. So that will be the new baseline. And lastly, to tackle on the complexity issues, it's not simply just by adding more capacities and hiring more people, right? So the actual solutions to it is for building more capacities within us, digitalizations, utilize the firm data foundations that compounds over time. So I'll pass the time back to the MC. Thank you.